In the US, pro-Palestine protesters and counter-demonstrators are disrupting colleges right across the country. These are the scenes at the University of California in Los Angeles. Tensions flaring after the university labelled the demonstration as unlawful. Members of the crowd can be seen throwing objects and hitting other members of the crowd. For more, joining us live now is Professor Gordon Flake, founding CEO of the Perth USAsia Centre. Gordon, good to see you. Thank you. Extraordinary scenes across the US as these campus protests turn violent, riot police being called in. These protests really exposing what we know are very deep divisions in the US over the country's Middle East policy positions.
They do indeed, and for many they're reminders of the situation in the United States back in 1968, a year of tense divisions around the Vietnam War, and there's a lot of parallels being driven between those events and these events today. Thus far, I'm not convinced that we're at the same level. Obviously, there are some strong emotions on both sides of this issue, but obviously there's a broader preponderance of the student bodies in all these universities who are facing final exams and eager to get forward and move forward. It is going to be very interesting to see, however, how this plays into the broader political discourse over the next 6 months.
Because it is a tricky one, isn't it, for authorities and campus leaders to navigate students on university campuses protests. They always have, they always will. But when it gets violent, obviously things need to change.
So one of the real big differences from the 1960s, of course, is that the government in power in the United States today is the Democratic government, who is relatively sympathetic to the students and relatively sympathetic to the plight of the Palestinians in Gaza. What you have is on the other side, a Republican Party, and particularly a Republican former president and current presidential candidate, Donald Trump, who's pushing for a much harder line on the students. And so it's really not quite clear how this plays out. On the one hand, it's clear that the students themselves are displeased with the current administration's support for Israel, but the alternative is even stronger support for Israel and a former president who's called for an outright ban on Muslims entering the United States. And so it's not quite as clear-cut as it might seem to be.
And it comes as Antony Blinken is in Israel. He wants a deal between Hamas and Israel. Just how influential is the US, Gordon, as to whether or not that eventuates?
Well, it's clear there's real limitations on terms of our ability to affect an issue that has been going on for millennia. But what you're seeing with Secretary Blinken's visit, at least from my reading of the reporting on it, is he's probably got that middle position staked out pretty well. There's a lot of criticism on the right that he's being too solicitous of the Palestinians, and he's not being strong enough supportive of the Israeli government. And on the other hand, you've got a lot of people, particularly among the students in the stories we just saw, that think he's being too solicitous of the Israelis and not supportive enough of the Palestinians and cause. And that just highlights the challenge, not just for the United States, but for Australia and any other democratic country, to recognize the very real security threats that Israel faces, what happened on October 7th, and at the same time, being able to express concern for the people of Gaza, and particularly the women and children who are kind of caught in the crossfires. It's a situation that, as it has long been, one that defies easy solutions. And I think Secretary Blinken's visit shows how divided those two camps are on this issue right now.
Gordon, closer to home, our defence and foreign ministers have been meeting with their South Korean counterparts. South Korea is keen to be involved in AUKUS Pillar 2. It also comes as Defence Minister Richard Marles said the Australian government isn't concerned about a possible acquisition of the defence shipbuilder Austal by a South Korean company. The government obviously convinced that our nations are on the same page when it comes to these security issues.
Yeah, Korea and Australia signed a comprehensive strategic partnership in December of 2021, and this most recent 2+2, or defense ministers and foreign ministers joint meeting, really kind of puts a lot more meat on those bones. It's been a tremendous advancement of our cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, our cooperation on security issues, our cooperation on technology issues, and our cooperation globally. I'm one who doesn't believe that there is an expansion of AUKUS in the cards, but there's no question that when it comes to the Pillar 2, the technological cooperation of AUKUS, that is going to require key economies and key partners like South Korea and Japan. So 3 weeks ago when I was in Washington, D.C., the discussion was all about AUKUS and Japanese support for Pillar 2 of AUKUS. There's no question that that will also include South Korea going forward. A very natural partner of Australia's, because we and South Korea and Japan are all treaty allies of the United States and all see some of the issues that we're facing in a very similar manner.
Gordon Flake, always appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.